Well, hello and welcome to all of our viewers around the world. I'm Fiona Langsharp, IBCLC Director of Communications and MC at Gold Learning. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. I have an amazing presentation coming up for you here called The Concert of Hormones, the Biology of Mammary Gland and Regulation of Milk Production. And I have to say that I had an opportunity to listen to this presentation already, and you really are in for a treat, but get ready to take lots of notes, my friends. This really is, I would say, well, Anna's going to correct me in a minute because it's not a deep dive. I know that we only got to have you for an hour for this presentation, but it really did, speak to what is being researched, what you're seeing, what's out there. There's no simple answer. We talked about how long it takes to get research, to the desks of everybody, but you really have given us a clearer insight into what's happening in some of these areas with hormones. So welcome so much to you, Anna. It's great to have you here today. Thank you for being part of the Gold Lactation Conference. Folks can head over and, of course, register for this conference right now and for your presentation. Tell me what you're doing these days and catch me up on all the things that you've been researching.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. I had a blast preparing this presentation. It's been really fun. I am a medical student at UC Davis. I'm entering my fourth year and I'm preparing to apply to dermatology residency programs with the hope of becoming a breast dermatologist, specializing in nipple and areolar conditions and complaints. As part of this work, just kind of my latest and greatest research that I wanted to share, I am studying how a new non-invasive optical biopsy tool can be used to take a little picture of the nipple and get a cellular level resolution down to the dermal epidermal junction, where you can see fungal organisms, you can see eczema, psoriasis, melanoma, you can see whatever you want to see on the nipple, so we don't have to actually be chopping nipples off every time someone comes in with a complaint of nipple pain. So really, really exciting stuff to be able to support our patients with lactational nipple complaints and provide them with a real diagnosis. So that's what I'm doing on the side.
Just on the side.
My background is as a PhD trained mammary gland biologist. I got an amazing opportunity to work with cows and pigs and mice and understand how their mammary glands develop, how they function, and how the stress hormone cortisol regulates their milk output. And that's a lot of the work that I did as part of my PhD has now been kind of condensed down into the presentation, the part 2 of the presentation that I gave for the Gold Lactation Conference this year.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you are one busy person. I don't know how you juggle all those things, but you're certainly very passionate. And when I listened to you today, I was reminded of not only how smart you are, but how passionate you are, at looking at all the details. And I think that's what really matters here, because these details, when you translate it into how it impacts the client, it's really quite profound. Having knowledge is power, but it really could change the trajectory of how we treat clients, how clients' bodies behave, and so forth and so on. So that's really a lot of what I took away today. One of the things that I think is impacting so many of our clients today is stress. So tell me a little bit about, stress and hormones and what we know to date, and, what we anticipate might happen with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think stress is a very common complaint that many of our clients have. And they always are asking, well, I'm very stressed out and I feel like I have less milk today. I think we need to validate their concerns. There is a lot of evidence that stress and the various molecules that are involved in the stress response are decreasing milk output. I think what we can do is reassure them, especially if it's an acute stressful event, car crash, death of a family member, a big deadline that's coming up. These stressful events tend to have a transient response. And so milk production will decrease, usually for about 24 hours, 36 hours, and then usually will bump up again. There are some clients who will need additional support though. And so that's when it's really important to refer them to a lactation specialist or a breastfeeding and lactation medicine doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I common. Like you said, stress is very common, but on levels, we were talking about normal life stress, birth, death, those are normal life stress. But, sometimes, like you said, there is these unplanned or unpredicted, car accidents and so forth and so on. So, really can, of course, they need lots of reassurance, and I think follow-up, I think really, is the key as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah. One of the things that we've been talking about for some time is actually insulin resistance. So tell me some of the things that were surprising to you when you looked at this again.
hmm I think I was most surprised kind of by the harsh reality of the situation of patients with poor metabolic health and their
Mm,
continued efforts of pumping and pumping, sometimes 19 breast emptying events per day. And
mm,
still, after weeks and weeks of doing this, many of them were unable to increase their milk supply. Um, and I think this speaks to the kind of mental health crisis that we have in the United
right.
States as well. We need to be cognizant of at least what the latest research is telling us, that not everyone, especially those with poor metabolic health, not everyone will be able to increase their milk output. Now, I wish I had a looking glass or some kind of magical predictive algorithm to tell you who's going to have struggles. And so, on the flip side, the other thing that I found very surprising when I was researching this talk is that there are plenty of people with quote unquote poor metabolic health, gestational diabetes diagnoses that are producing plenty of milk. And so it's really important for us as clinicians and researchers not to discount those patients who have maybe increased abdominal adiposity and increased BMI, the diagnosis of diabetes. We need to be supporting everyone, especially in that first week postpartum. That is the critical time period where we can do a lot of good and set them up for success.
Yeah, I love what you said. I mean, we don't know for sure. And so I think sometimes language gets in the way of care, and can really sidetrack, a client if they hear a certain, element, something that we've said to them or something that they've heard or even read, in terms. But you were very clear that we don't know for sure. And so there's definitely some key things that we can take away and think about before we're providing information, to our clients. Tell me on that note, what would be some of the key messages that you would want healthcare providers to really know from your sort of latest findings?
Mhm. So, in the first part of my talk, I exposed the audience to a whole host of different molecules, really an alphabet soup of new characters, not your typical estrogen, progesterone, and prolactin. We do not really talk about those in the hour that I have. Instead, we talk about FGF and WNT and PTH. What are these things? And it turns out that there are quite a few like genetic conditions that people have where they might have an abnormality in their limb, in their hands, and their digits. And that abnormality is directly related to a defect that they have in their mammary tissue and in their nipple tissue, or even in the sweat glands in their armpit. And so I think the key kind of translation of all of this information for the listeners would be have an open mind.
Mm,
Don't just zero in on the breast tissue, look at the whole person. Maybe we need to take into consideration other elements of the physical exam as lactation clinicians, just like we look at the whole baby, right? We look at the baby's tone, we look at the baby's mood, fussy or calm. We need to look at the parent beyond just their breasts and their nipples and understand what else might be going on that might be affecting their milk production.
mm. I was just reminded as you were talking about that, that that's why I love listening to you, because you're just the type of person that just doesn't take anything at face value at all. You always go deeper. You will peel off the layers until you find something. And looking that
For
slide
better or
there,
for worse.
yeah, yeah. But that slide that, where you showed, how all those different features. So not just not zeroing in on just the breast or the breast tissue, but really looking at the whole body and how that could potentially be telling us a story of what's happening could be so important. And I think sometimes we get blinders on, as clinicians, and we head into consults, and sometimes it's really hard. And I think that's something that I really have taken away today from you. So thank you so much for, again, just shedding light on all of these things and putting a human side to things too, of, we don't always know, even though we've got a lot of research to back up a lot of things. We don't always know what the true answer is. So we really need to be careful. In putting this all together, what do you think is the most important, item for you? How do you see you continue this research? I really want to know, what you've taken away from all of this research yourself, and how you see yourself going deeper into this as well. Where would you go next?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my current research interest is really aligning me more so with nipple skin, nipple
Yes.
pathology as a you know future dermatologist, hopefully.
Hmm.
But I am not forgetting my roots as a mammary gland biologist and my PhD on hormonal regulation of milk production. I currently serve as an adjunct professor of breastfeeding and lactation medicine at the University of Rochester, and in that role, I serve as the director for research education for all of the fellows. And it's a really, really fantastic opportunity for me to teach the next generation of leaders in the
Mm.
field how to do research. And so we have ongoing projects for all of our fellows, many of which are related to understanding maternal or parental metabolic health and how it affects milk supply. And so I feel very, very lucky to be in this position to kind of guide future research, future leaders and clinicians in this space, and kind of further my own research interests in the process. It's
Sure.
been really,
Yeah.
really wonderful to be able to take what I've learned and kind of give it to the next generation of researchers and clinicians and kind of move the field forward, focusing specifically on research projects that are going to be either practice changing or policy changing.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, the next generation, they are so important. And another area that sometimes gets neglected, is that once you have it, it's yours to give away. And, it's really important for clinicians to remember that as they get further into their work, no matter what area they're in. So thank you so much to Anna Sadovnikova for being with me here today. Absolutely fabulous. Don't forget, presentation title is A Concert of Hormones, the biology of the mammary gland and regulation of milk production. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us here today, and we will look forward to seeing you at our Gold Lactation Conference. You can head over there right now to goldlactation.com to register for the event. But for now, it is time to say goodbye. So thank you again for joining us here today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye for now, everyone.